Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 7 of the Titanforge podcast. My name is Dratnos. Joining me on the video camera down here is Trell.
Hello, I do have a camera.
And not with a camera today again is our aquatic entrepreneur, Tettles.
Hello, the bathwater sales have not taken off yet, so I, in fact, do not have a camera this week. Maybe we'll be back next week with a camera?
Yes. So Tettles is trying to pool together his Gamer Boy Bathwater Fund and purchase a camera. If anybody doesn't know what we're talking about, you're going to be deeply scarred if you do this, but you can go check Tettles' Twitter and find a post. It's the post with like 100 likes, and you can take a look at that and see just what we're talking about. But basically, if you want to purchase Tettles' bathwater, it's available. It's out there.
Is it available?
It is, yeah.
I mean, I wasn't planning on making it available, but I mean, if there's enough interest, I will make it available.
Okay, you advertised in a tweet that it was available, so I would assume it would be false advertising for you to not send me the bathwater.
Okay.
Okay. So Tettles, that's what you've been up to this past week mostly, right? It's just framing that shot for your Twitter.
Yeah, doing stupid stuff on Twitter. Been doing 4th of July activities because I'm a gamer dad as well. Shout out to Trell.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
How about you, Trell? What have you been up to?
I was on a work trip for part of the week, and when I got back, I worked one day. Then we had our holidays in the United States here, which is 4th of July. So I saw some family friends and went to a wedding yesterday. I've had lots of IRL stuff. So not as much farming as I would have liked. My neck's only 54.
Yep, that's better than mine. My necklace is an embarrassing 52 and a half, which is just it's so bad. But I've been away for I just got back like yesterday. Just got off my plane, did some stuff and went to sleep, woke up, started my podcast. So that's where I am. That's what I've been up to.
Stuff too.
Do you have a tropical expedition planned, Dratnos?
Is that like an island thing?
Yeah, it's a luxurious island, dude. Islands are fun, okay? Tropical expeditions, they're an experience. They're not a bad thing.
Are you suggesting that I'm going to spend the next like 2 days just like chain farming islands? I might. It's not a bad idea.
These are there's like one really fucking bad island. You got the volcano, and then you got the Panda Island, which is not that bad, but it's not that great, and then you got the Good Island. So.
Yeah, the Good Island. Very, you just get there and you have so much fun. Is that how that works?
It's the island that you can one pull. I don't really know what it is.
So the crocodiles and the birds. And
it's the Croc Island, yeah.
Okay. One other thing that is coming up, if you're watching our live show today, which is Saturday the 6th of July. By the way, we are live every Saturday at noon Pacific time on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Ratnos. Tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific time, I think, there's going to be a mythic dungeon tournament called Keystone Masters that Trell is competing in and I'm casting at twitch.tv/Keystone Masters. So definitely check that one out. Make sure you follow their Twitter and their Twitch and everything and catch the VODs if you miss it. It'll be really fun though. I hope you, I don't know if I should say I hope you win. I hope that everybody has a good time. I hope you have a lot of fun. Or you had a lot of fun with your matches, Trell?
We did have a lot of fun. We made sure we took it as casually as possible, so we didn't practice the runs more than we like made ourselves do it, even if it was horrible. So we're like, let's just spend a couple hours, get it done, and have some fun.
That's good. That's good.
Wait, did you just say take a couple hours? Hold on, wait a second.
Well, okay, I meant for all 3 runs. We did them all in one day.
Huh.
Yeah, just a couple hours, do the King's Rest, and I've been in a King's Rest for 2 hours. I'm not afraid to admit it. I've been there. It was a Bwansamdi run, which, by the way, when Bwansamdi goes away in a couple days, I'm not sure I'm going to be ready for it. Like, there was always that thing coming when you messed up your key badly enough. Is that like Bwansamdi was always on his way to help, and you could always eventually complete the key. But could you imagine like trying to like do a King's Rest tyrannical Bwansamdi run without Bwansamdi? I'm not looking forward to it. It's gonna be rough. Anyways, I guess I should talk about what our main topic is going to be this week. This week we're going to talk about user interface, UI. We've each kind of got our UIs ready to talk about and talk about the things that you can do to make your UI better, which I think this is a topic that for a lot of like new players to WoW, it's kind of an element that a lot of games don't have, is customizing a UI and making it do all the things that are best for success in this game. There's a lot of information in World of Warcraft, and having a UI that presents it to you well is really, really important. So we'll talk about some of the things that are good for that. Trell, you'll give us a tanking perspective as well, and talk about some useful modifications you can make as a tank. We'll also talk about a couple things that you should do as a healer if you're one of those, and then everything else will just apply to everybody in terms of what your UI should do. Then we'll also just cover some of the current events in 8.2, and then we'll do questions and answers, and that'll be the end of our show. So let's start off, I guess, with just some definitions. So we're going to talk about UI and keybinds. Tettles, what's a UI and what are keybinds?
So UI like ends up standing for user interface, and basically it's like the part of the screen that you're actually playing with. Like it ends up being like just like your key binding bars that are down at the bottom of the screen. Like your chat bar is also part of your user interface. All of like your buffs and debuffs at like the top of your screen is also part of your user interface. And there are a lot of ways that you can end up modifying it. There's a lot of add-ons or customization, either through like, you could get like a UI add-on like Elv UI. You could get like a nameplate add-on like Plater or something like that. You could even get weak ores. I think we're all pretty big advocates of weak ores here. Weak ores are obviously like the easiest way to change your UI in some way, because you just end up like, you're able to put like static images or like updating things on your screen that give you more information as time goes on, or as like the fight incurs or stuff like that. So it's all really important. And then for keybinds, it's just like what ends up happening whenever you press a certain button on your keyboard, like, and then you end up putting it and binding it to like a specific button or an ability most of the time.
Yeah, so there are characteristics of both good and bad UI and keybind stuff. I guess let's start by taking a look at Trell's UI here, and we can use this as an example of a great UI, an excellent UI. And then
so.
You're also, your keybinds are visible in your UI, which is a nice thing about it as well. So here's a screenshot of Trell's UI. I'll put this in chat as well here if anybody wants to follow along. This is Trell's beautiful UI. Trell, why did you, I don't know, is there anything you'd like to highlight about your UI here?
Well, you got the standard stuff. So you got visible health frames for you and your target at all times right there. If I was in a party, you'd see my health frames for my allies. Like, I think every role should do that, not just healers, of course. You can see everyone's life and what.
And they're close to the center of your screen, right? The like your health bar and your target's health bar are not in the default position way up in the top left where you can't see them, but they're right near where your eyes are.
I actually put my health bars on my tanking UI like midway between them, but if I was healing as Mistweaver, I have them like right next to the center of my screen. Mm-hmm. It's definitely a good thing for healers for sure. But that's all classes, I still mouse over a little bit on tank, so I have them like relatively close.
Right. So the I guess kind of the important thing is basically the core rule is the more important the information is, the closer it should be to the center of your screen, because then you don't have to like look really far away. And this is, I don't know, it's kind of weird, but like the time it takes you to look from the middle of your screen to the top left of your screen is actually pretty substantial. So if stuff is outside of that middle like box in the very center of your screen, you're gonna lose a lot of time looking away. And then, as you said there, mouse over stuff. Like, many classes have things that you're going to want to cast on your allies, so you're going to want to potentially set those up as mouse over casts. So if you have like a fuse or whatever cast on an ally, I don't know what you cast on them as Brewmaster. That's
like detox,
right? Okay, perfect. Yeah,
Tiger's Lust, dude.
Tiger's Lust. So yeah, you have actually quite a few spells that you want to cast on your friends. So having your unit frames be close to yourself is valuable too. Then I see you're tracking like your fortifying brew, your iron skin brew, all that stuff near the mid.
I have like a template I do for tanks, and you see the one green number there. That's the number one right in the middle. That's my main mitigation. So that's my iron skin brew timer.
Mm-hmm.
I do something like that for every tank. So like warrior, that's where shield block is. Demon hunter, that's where demon spikes is. Like everything is similar on all my UIs, so that I can kind of know where to look by habit, no matter what tank.
Right. Okay. So that tracks just how long is on your active mitigation.
Mm-hmm. So that's my main mitigation. Then I have a couple defensive CD weak auras up there. They're really simple ones that just show a little icon. That way you know exactly when Fort Brew's about to fall off because you see the ticker hit the end, and you know, you got to kite or do something.
That's
right away.
good, because like you have your buffs up in the top right of your screen, but again, that's not somewhere that's like super realistic to look at. So you want pretty much anything that's important to be tracked somewhere more central than that top right buff bar thing. Okay, and then you also have some stuff, I presume mostly for your stream, up in the top left of your stream or your screen. Yeah.
A lot of streamers use weak auras like that. I know you do too. That shows your Azurite setup, your talents, your trinkets, and then possibly the essence, I guess, soon. I don't know if someone's made a good one for that yet. I'll be looking for that.
That's definitely something that you'll want to show, and that's just, again, that's in that garbage space of your screen where you don't actually look all that often, so you can just put some cool stuff there if you're ever streaming for people to look at.
It's also important to know that like damage meters are also fall into that category of like garbage that you don't end up looking at a lot often. And generally speaking, so if I wasn't streaming, I would probably just completely turn my damage meters off in general, because I catch myself like staring at them sometimes, like whenever I'm like mid pull on a boss, and they just kind of become distracting. So if you catch yourself like staring at your damage meters occasionally, I would just recommend probably turning them off.
Yeah. But yeah, tunneling your damage meters is definitely something that...
Dude, a lot of people do that shit, and then they get distracted and they kill themselves. It happens like a lot more often than you'd actually think.
Tettles.
Particularly, like, you know, if you play Moonkin, you want to turn those things off. It's just too depressing.
Wait, oh my god.
Okay.
I actually use my damage meters for useful things when I'm in dungeons, at least. Probably raid, it is a little distracting and kind of pointless for a tank. In dungeons, if you can see like how much mana your healer is spending or how many CDs they're having to use by the amount of HPS they're using, right? So
yeah,
it can be useful now and then.
Tracking their HPS on like Galvs in Temple as well. Is always a nice thing. You know, every single time I've killed Galvs on a high key and on stream, people are always like, "Wow, the healer did 40 zillion HPS or whatever."
I mean, but that's not like really useful. Like even though it is like cool to look at those numbers, it's not exactly useful, and it ends up being like probably more distracting than it ends up being like helpful. Like obviously, if you end up like dissecting stuff, you're looking at like damage taken by spell or something like that after the fact. It's like way different. But if you're just using it at face value, just like normal damage meter, normal healing meter, it doesn't really give like a lot of useful information.
I think you're right. That's you're absolutely right, Tettles, that like for the most part you could just delete your damage meters and like only turn them on when you want to look at a specific window for a specific piece of information you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean for the longest time I would just like pull up logs like after the pull if I really wanted to look at like damage taken from something or like look at damage done to a target or something like that. I would just like pull up logs, but I mean now I end up streaming more, so I just end up having damage meters on just because.
Right, because it's good stream. It's good to see that for stream.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just so they can get like a perspective of like how much damage I'm dealing, whatever else, right?
Okay, there's a couple other things I want to talk about your UI here, Trell. You have your externals, utility CDs, crowd control, showing in near the middle of your screen as well, over off to the left. What sort of stuff do you track there? Yeah.
That is part of a weak aura called Tears weak aura. I think he recently retired from maintaining that weak aura set, but it's TEHR if you want to search for it on Wago. It has a really useful centralized information that's just like you can track all the utility CCs there. So I think it shows my Ring of Peace and my sweep since I'm in the party, but if there's more than one person in the party, it lists all of their utility and categories that they have, and it shows a cooldown off to the right of it as well. So you can see I can go back in. I'm about to have Ring of Peace coming up in 3 seconds just by looking off there and everyone else's utilities at the same time instead of just your own.
Yeah, that's sort of a tank thing as well, that like tracking everybody's like sweep and stuff. If it, like there's some value to tracking that if you're anybody, but especially if you're a tank, you can call out like somebody to AoE stun or whatever based on just glancing there. So when you're calling shots, it's even more useful. But I think it's good for everybody to have that.
I would agree. There's also a lot of versions of something similar to that. You can, of course, use Exorcist raid tools to get something to achieve a similar goal as what Trail has. Also, Naga has like a party cooldown tracker, Weakora, which achieves a similar goal. It has like both offensive and utility spells for cooldowns and stuff like that. So there's like a lot of ways that you can end up doing something similar to what Trail has here. But I think having the information, even if you don't end up like consciously thinking about it a lot of the time, still just having it is better than not, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so when people ask you what add-ons you use, it turns out most of the stuff on your screen here is just a different weak aura of some kind or another.
Yep.
which is it's usually true for me. Anytime somebody comes to my stream and they're like, "What is that add-on?" I'm usually like, "Okay, this is a weak aura. Here's a link to it." And yeah, so one great way to improve your UI is just you go to the weak aura site, wago.io, wago.io, and you can just look at the popular weak auras and see what cool ones are out there. And you can find a bunch of different ones that do all sorts of useful things. Let's talk a little bit about your keybinds here, Trell. Why don't we talk about why you've chosen to bind certain things to certain abilities? So first off, do you have, I guess, one kind of controversial thing? Do you have your backpedal bound?
I do, yeah. It's actually a very useful skill as a tank. A lot of people from PvP side would say, "Why do you have it bound? That's just a noob thing to do." But in reality, it's useful in PvP. There's a lot of encounters where you tank it, and the backpedal speed that you move is like perfect for moving the boss because it's dropping shit behind him and all over the ground, so you don't want to go too fast or too slow. And the other thing is you need to block or parry or dodge or whatever you do to mitigate attacks as a tank from your front side. Except for Bear, I think currently still can block from behind with their armor, with their mitigation. I mean,
they can like dodge. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it was the case for. I don't know if it's still the case, but
interesting.
But
I didn't know about
every
that.
tank you need your front side, like your whole 180 degrees in front of you, face toward all the mobs, like at all times. So sometimes backpedaling is really nice for that.
Yeah, and like it's possible to achieve that with strafing, but it's hard, and it's not always possible. Like depending on which 180 degrees they're in, if they're on different sides of you, the only way to keep them in front of you might be to backpedal for sure. So yeah, it's definitely. Good.
I don't even think backpedaling is in general that bad either. Like obviously like backpedaling is your main form of moving is like really bad, but I think if you're using like micro movements like really occasionally just to like reposition yourself kind of quickly, I think backpedaling like even as like a DPS, not even just a tank, can actually be pretty good too.
Yeah, it's so there's kind of been this this discussion in WoW for like 10 years, and mostly on the PvP side, which is like you should not have your backpedal bound. And I think that in PvE, it's not actually true. Like backpedaling, even if as not a tank, does have some utility. If you're a caster, like you really do want to avoid backpedaling in most cases because just if anytime you're moving, if you can move there faster, it's probably good. But if you're going to do it in one global anyway, it doesn't matter whether you do it in half a global or a full global, right? If you're on the global cooldown, so it doesn't matter too much. And then if you're a melee, like slight repositioning with backpedal, you're more precise. And if time doesn't matter, if it doesn't matter how fast you're going to get somewhere, backpedaling is a great thing to do. Okay, other keybinds. So I see you have like R is your interrupt. You have a bunch of shift binds on shift R, shift A. What's kind of the logic behind what you've bound to where, Trell?
So I think a lot of that like originated as an accident. Like you throw it, the first time you play a character, you throw a bunch of abilities on a bar, and you're like, you keep some of those probably for life. Like your paralyzed might be on a weird key, like Shift S is my paralyzed. But then I take that one key and I use that for all my other characters that have a similar kind of ability. So my Demon Hunter has Imprison on Shift S. My Bear has Incap Roar on Shift S, I think.
Yeah, I think that's how you can identify like a dangerous human being that you don't want to like be in the same room as because they might murder you. Is if they have paralysis and Imprison on two different keybinds across their monk and their Demon Hunter, that person is probably a psychopath, and you need to avoid them at all costs because it's such a good thing to do is to put those similar abilities on the same keybind.
I mean, I think some are like really important to have on the same keybind. I think like Interrupt is like the most notable one of like you should probably have that on the exact same keybind, like regardless of character. I think that's like by far the most important one. I think that everything else is a little bit looser-ish.
Yeah, so
yeah, definitely.
Putting similar, and maybe sometimes it gets moved around a little bit because
CC should probably be on similar binds like Paralysis and Imprison, and then like Leg Sweep and Chaos Nova or whatever the hell else, right?
Yeah, but like maybe one of your classes has a sprint and the other class doesn't, so that moves everything around, and that causes like your sprint keybinds. I don't know. It's possible for stuff to get messed up just because different classes have access to different stuff. And then usually you want your like core rotational abilities to all be anything you're going to push a lot. You want to be easy for your hands to hit, right? And then you want those kind of more arcane keybinds, the more harder to hit ones, to be ones that you only have to press every once in a while, right? So like it's kind of the same as your UI, where the more important stuff goes in the middle, and then it kind of radiates outward in a based on importance.
Yeah. And the way I do it with a theme is I go shift 1 through 5 is usually my offensive cooldown or defensive cooldown, like the biggest things I have for whatever class. And then main rotation is 1 through 5. So you have like your damage on one side of the keys, and then when you press shift, you're like going for a defensive as a tank, something like that. And I think the rest of my defensives are on like shift tab and shift F. So they're all like kind of the same kind of movement of your hands. So it just shifts the gears a little bit between your rotation.
Yeah, using a modifier key like Shift or Alt or whatever is based on how your hand fits on your keyboard. Using a key like that is a good idea, for sure. Okay, let's advance to our second UI here and take a look at what's going on. Oh, this is mine. Okay, this is my UI. Well, I was red because I was low on health. Okay.
That's good to talk about, though.
Yeah, when I'm low on health, my whole screen flashes red. I was fighting this tanking dummy so that I could showcase my focus kick setup, which I think is the next thing I want to talk about here. If you do Mythic Plus, I think that a focus kick is a really useful thing to have. So if you look at the top of my screen here, near the top of my screen, you can see there's a huge cast bar for Uber Strike, which is what my focus target is casting. And then right next to it, there's my Wind Shear keybind, and next to that is my focus unit frame. So basically the way I do Mythic Plus is I have a keybind, G, that will set my target as my focus. And then when my target is my focus, their nameplate changes. It gets those, you can see their purple slash lines across the nameplate. My nameplates are plater nameplates. So then the nameplate changes, and then their cast bar goes near the top of the screen, and then I have a keybind that specifically kicks my focus target. And that way, even if I don't have them targeted, I can still get a kick there. For Mythic Plus, this is like an extremely valuable thing to have, is having the ability to kick your focus target, because then you can target something else and do damage to that, and you've got your assigned kick, and you can still get your kick. Now, my weak aura even goes a little farther. My like if you see the wind shear up there, that's going to turn red if I'm out of range of wind shearing my focus target, which is another useful thing to have. And that you can do the same thing. Like I have it for kick, and every class I play, I have the same weak aura set up for that class's interrupt. And then my kick is on 9, and if I want to just kick my target and not my focus, I do shift 9, and I can do that because I got one of these mouses that has the 12 buttons on the side. Mm-hmm. And I really like that. I like that because I don't like doing a lot of shifts, like shift X, shift Q, shift tab, those kind of maneuvers with my hand. So I prefer to instead just have access to 7 through 12 or whatever on my mouse.
Yeah, MMO mice in general are just really good for WoW, just because of how many binds you end up having to have, like especially for stuff like you were saying, like a focus kick. You could have like your normal kick on some button, and then you put your focus kick on like mouse button plus that normal modifier or whatever else, right?
Yeah, it gives you access to a bunch of extra buttons, because normally you don't want to bind stuff on like higher than 6, depending on how big your hands are, because that would be like.
How big are your hands, Stratnos?
Big enough to cover the webcam. See? But yeah, depending on, basically you just don't want to try and have keybinds where you have to move your hands far away from WASD to hit those. Speaking of WASD, by default when you get this game, and for almost everybody watching or listening to this is going to be information that you already have, but I figure it's worth covering just because if there's somebody out here who doesn't know this, if there's somebody who's new to the game, normally A and D are bound to turning your character, and Q and E are bound to strafing your character. That's wrong. You need to change that as soon as you can, as soon as you install the game, really. So you should unbind turning your character. That's not a useful thing to have. You want to turn with your mouse, and you want your A and D or whatever. You can keep it as Q and E, and you can use A and D as keybinds. There are some people who do that, but most people will turn their A and D into strafing. And then Q and E get freed up to just be ability keybinds. So like Q is where my Hex and Imprison and Blind go, and E is where my AoE abilities usually go. And then
I actually I have an Opiate Wheel on my Q. Ooh. I don't know if we've talked about that before, but Opiate is an add-on that when you press a hotkey, it brings up a wheel of options that you've put, and so you can move your mouse toward any direction on the wheel to hit that keybind without having to actually press anything but key. So like mine is a bunch of mounts on Q, and then I used to have markers and equipment sets back in Legion, but it'll probably be maybe different potions this patch, since there's like 4 new DPS potions out there.
Yeah, so when you want, like, you want stuff to be keybound, but like there's 100 things that you want to keybind in this game. So that add-on Opie is really useful for pseudo keybinding stuff that you want. Like it adds an extra step between hitting the keybind and using the ability you want. You press the keybind, it opens up a wheel, and then you move in a direction and you get that thing. But yeah, I have like Z and Shift Z are my target markers and my world markers. X is like my different utility mounts, so I can get on my auction house mount. No big deal, by the way. My transmog mount, my 2-seater mount, that kind of stuff. And then I can press like N to get access to my like spec swapping. It's like a quick spec swap window, and also my whistle, my Flight Master's whistle. So that kind of like out in the world utility, which speeds you up a little bit.
Definitely. Yeah, it's definitely good for like non-time sensitive stuff, like non-time sensitive abilities or whatever else.
Yeah,
like
you can configure it to you can configure it to be like a little bit quicker as well. Like I have one wheel Shift 4 for me is like Sky Step Purification Potion, which is a little known potion that lets you drop like a poison effect on you, a poison curse or magic or something. So that's useful. I use that one in Temple sometimes when I get spat on. And then like Drainic Living Action Potion to break stuns. So all those kind of like utility potions that you rarely use but sometimes do, I have that on Shift 4.
Like niche potions.
Yeah, exactly. And the way it works is if I hit Shift 4 and I don't move my mouse at all, like if I just tap it, it'll Sky Step me. But if I hold it, it'll open up that wheel, and then I can go in one of the directions and change which of those. So yeah, great add-on, great one to recommend. You'll notice if you look at my UI here, I've got a couple other, like, I've got a weak aura tracking my resounding protection that's showing me it'll be back up in 4.3 seconds. So that's like having a weak aura to track those sorts of shield effects on yourself is a good idea. I have weak auras that, like, some of my rotation is highlighted right now because it's, like, there are abilities that I should cast that would be good for rotation. So I've modified my weak auras package. Like, I have a main center package that I use on almost all my classes. It's called the Afinar Weak Aura package, which he's got one for like every class. Luxthos is another good person who's created similar packages. There are a bunch though that you can find that will just show you like all your main rotational abilities, and then you can see my action bars are actually hidden. Like you don't see where my actual action bars are on screen. Every piece of information I need is in this center UI bit, and then I've made some of the things like glow to remind me to cast them. I've modified it, like I added tracking for extra stuff that wasn't originally there. You'll see I found a little weak aura that tells me how many sliver stacks I have, incandescent sliver stacks, and it'll turn red when I start losing stacks. So all those sorts of things, like a lot of this was me just like thinking about what I wanted for my UI, and like anytime there was a piece of information that I needed to go somewhere else to find, I would just go and try and find a weak aura that could show that to me near the center of my screen. And that, I think, is a great process to have. Okay, so that's all the stuff I think I wanted to talk about on my UI here.
I had a quick question for you. How do you go about like learning a new class like rotationally if you don't have your like keybinds shown at all?
Yeah, so when I'm like picking up something very new, I'll show my bars until I figure out what my binds are. But that's. I like to have them hidden because I don't want to look at the bottom of my screen. So if I don't hide my keybinds, I'll look at them at the bottom of my screen instead of like forcing myself to look near the middle of my screen to see my cooldowns. So it's kind of like a push me out of the nest so that I'll learn to fly type situation. Of like by hiding them, I'll actually look at the right spot on my screen and not look at the bad spot near the bottom of my screen. To find stuff, but yeah, when I'm first picking up a new spec or whatever, I'll show the bars for a couple days until I learn where the buttons are.
Yeah, I think we can definitely all agree on you should definitely look at your keybinds for a little bit to get used to them. But the goal of what Dratno said is he wants to get away from looking there. It is a good strategy to hide them from yourself to force a habit.
Yeah, because otherwise I will just look at the actual action bars and they're at the bottom of my screen, and I don't want to do that. All the information I need should be in the middle of my screen, and if there's something that isn't near the middle of my screen, then I'll add a weak aura to track it. But yeah, otherwise I would just yeah. Okay, are we ready to move on to Tettles' UI? Yes, we are.
Dude, I have like a really obscure ass UI.
Okay, tell us about some of the weird things going on here.
All right, so first off, I use ESDF because I'm a fucking druid player and I need like 10 million keybinds.
Okay, what is You use ASDF?
ESDF. So like just
ESDF.
it's WASD but shifted over one.
Oh, okay. So that gives you access to another.
OCD is hurting.
That gives you access to one QAZ or whatever that we wouldn't normally have. On the left.
Pretty much, because so early on I didn't even have like an MMO mouse or whatever, so I didn't have any buttons or anything, so I needed more like modifiers on my keyboard, so I had to like shift over WASD. So there was definitely a reasoning behind it. It's not that bad, like I'm used to it now, so it doesn't really matter, but not exactly conventional by any means. I do also now have a mouse with buttons on it, so that's pretty good. I think it's also important to note that like a bunch of the UI stuff is like normally you're gonna have it normally closer to the ground, so it ends up taking up less space in general on your UI, just because of like how the camera ends up being positioned. A lot of the time, you end up having like probably like 70% of your screen is like usable space where you're actually like looking at stuff already as is. So taking up any of that space is not super useful, but like having that big block of like ground part where there's like not much actually going on a lot of the time is normally okay, where it's like back behind your character or stuff like that. Obviously, you want like next to your character and under your character to be shown, though.
Yeah, so that's definitely an interesting note, right? As we were talking about how you wanted to put stuff near the middle of your screen, and everybody has a slightly different preference on this, but like, you definitely don't want to put stuff too in the middle of your screen so you can't see your feet, because watching your feet so that you don't stand in fire is a valuable skill in this game. So yeah, finding whatever balance works best for you in terms of keeping your spells close to where your eyes are and keeping the center of your screen free from clutter is a great balance to hit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I also fuck with my like my enemy nameplates a lot. Like so I actually don't even have them like normal. Like I have them red if they're an enemy, and then like blue if I have them targeted, just so I can actually see what I have targeted. Because sometimes I'll like, if I end up solar beaming the wrong target, because I don't use like focus kick or anything, because like I don't have like a conventional kick, because Druid's like, because Moonkin is a weird fucking class. Like honestly, like I have like 10 bajillion binds for different forms and shit like that, and then like my kick is not conventional, so I don't normally care what I kick, but whenever I do, I have to make sure that I'm kicking the right target, because if you beam the wrong target, it won't, like if you beam a lieutenant mob, it won't silence it, so you have to make sure that you're actually kicking the correct target in that case. So I have to like, be like super cautious. I also like put a box outline over mobs that I have like threat on, in case like, because sometimes it's like important to be able to track like what you have threat on in case of skittish, or like if I end up playing my prot warrior, it's also super nice to see what I have threat on and what I don't, and other stuff like that. Obviously for like using trees and everything, it's also pretty good in that regard too.
Yeah, I think having a good nameplate setup that makes whatever information you need clear is a good one.
Target of target target of target nameplate weakors are also super sick.
How does that work? Like you're talking about like BFA targeted spells or whatever?
Yes, the BFA targeted spell is a weakor with the Git library add-on, or I think that's what it is. It's on Wago. It's like I think it's called BFA targeted spells. I think Dratnus is like spot on. That is actually just super sick. And basically, if there's like targeted spells on you or other party members, it will put like their name over the mob's head while the mob is casting. So that's always like very good.
So like you're in Siege of Borealis or whatever, you're fighting a marksman, and the marksman starts to cast Molten Slug or whatever, and it'll just put like Tettles in big letters above the mob, and you'll just know it's shooting Tettles. And that way, like, you can just quickly look at a pack and identify like if all the Grave Bolts, back when we had Reaping, which is not going to be true for much longer, but if all the Molten Shells are going on the same person, if all the Shadow Bolts, whatever cast, are going on somebody.
Powder shot,
yeah,
like stuff.
They can line really quick if they need to, or they can just, like, if they're being targeted by multiple effects, you can defensive them.
Or if it's targeting the Brought Warrior, spell reflect, so nobody kicks on purpose.
Yeah, theoretically, nobody kicks when stuff that's reflectable is targeting the Brought Warrior.
I'm kicking.
In practice,
kicks it, though.
In practice, I've never in my life. My friend says I'm spell reflecting, and I just still hit my kick button. I get yelled at. I get kicked from groups. That's actually the main reason that people don't play with me is that I kick over spell reflect. So yeah, I'm looking for any non-Brought Warrior tanks to push.
Well, you don't have to worry about me, Trell. I will never kick over your spell reflect.
Oh, good. That's because you barely have a kick. But it's really good when it's used.
Really good whenever it's good. Hold on.
Yeah, that's the Moonkin kick is definitely it's like a cousin of a regular kick, right? Like
it's feast or famine. Either you're fucking silencing the mobs and it's actually just overpowered as fuck, or it's really bad.
Okay, so there are a bunch of really, really great weak auras that you can find, and one good way to find weak auras to make your UI better is just to watch streamers, me in particular, but really anybody, but especially me. Please come watch my stream. You can look and see all the different stuff they have to show different information. There's weak auras for like quaking that'll put a big quaking timer at the top of your screen and track when the next quake is going to come. There's weak auras for bolstering that will like put an X on the target with the most health, and that way you just hit the target that's got the X and you play around bolstering automatically as long as you keep doing that. There's weak auras to like track the stun diminishing return on targets. I have one that like anchors that to their nameplates. There's weak auras you can use to track your party's interrupts. There's weak auras there's like little niche weak auras you can have that will just do something useful for your spec. Weak auras that will show your pre-pot and yell at you when you haven't pre-potted. All that kind of stuff. I have like a document that I'll put in the show notes for this that has all the stuff I use in my UI. But yeah, that basically one advantage to watching a bunch of different streams is that you can pick up, you can mix and match the best parts of their UI into your UI. And that's something that I would absolutely recommend. I'd recommend everybody watch streams particularly of like good players of their class and see what UI things they have going on.
That's actually a good thing that you said. So a question that I posed in our show notes is like, should you use other people's UI? And then like I think so for me, I don't think you should. I end up thinking you should end up making something that's more customizable to what your needs are. I think a lot of the time there's going to be a lot of spec specific shit that you end up needing. Like I don't really need like an interrupt tracker as a fucking moonkin unless I'm doing callouts, like realistically, right? I mean, I end up doing callouts, so I want stuff like that, but I don't really need to be tracking like defensives or anything like that. But I definitely need to have like party frames enabled. And I know that some DPS just don't even play with party frames enabled because they don't actually care. But there's like stuff like that. So I think you should be looking to customize your UI a little bit more than using other people's UI. But I think Dratnus is spot on with you should be looking at what other people are doing with their UI. So you should be taking a more like critical thinking approach to it.
Yeah, and asking streamers about like why they're displaying information the way that they are. I mean, okay, so WoW, like the hard parts about WoW aren't like clicking your buttons fast. For me, the hard part about WoW is that anytime you do a dungeon, there's like actually 1,000 pieces of information coming at you. And if your UI does a good job of filtering that out so that like the 10 pertinent things that are happening on the pole you can see easily, and the other 900 things aren't too obvious and are hidden away, that's going to get you a long way towards doing what you need to do. And you'll see people make bad plays all the time in keys that like they wouldn't make if they had access to good UI that told them what was happening. Like there are a bunch of abilities that just default UI doesn't show you how they're happening and what they do, and a good weak aura setup and a good nameplate setup will show you and will give you that huge edge. So yeah, I cannot recommend spending some time tweaking your UI and thinking about how you want to display your information enough. That's a really great thing to do for Mythic Plus and for raiding. For PvP, there are different rules for how your UI should look.
Nah, dude, fuck that. Make weak auras for PvP too. I know PvPers are like purists and all that shit, but you're wrong. Like you should have weak auras and stuff like that.
Yeah,
PvP too.
But like fundamentally, an optimal PvP UI probably looks quite a bit different from an optimal PvE UI. Like there's just
I agree with
stuff
that.
is in entirely different places in your frames or in your screen. Also, like if you're healing versus tanking, like if you're healing, DPSing, or tanking, stuff changes. If you're DPSing or tanking, like your party frames aren't too important. But if you're healing, it's vital that you. Okay, this is something that a lot of like by default when you get this game, the way that you heal somebody is you click on their party frame and then you click on your heal button, and you really want to get away from that as a healer. Like if you're a healer main, you want to, with very few exceptions, every high end healer that I know doesn't do that. They'll instead, like, they don't do the process of click somebody's unit frame, click on a heal. They instead have some way of one click does one heal, and they have a way of doing it generally that doesn't deselect their current target. So usually that'll mean that like they can have a hostile target targeted, and then they'll like have mouse over keybinds, so they'll mouse over somebody who they want to heal, and then they'll press a button that does /cast at mouse over heal, and that way they can keep their target selected, and they only have to do one click per heal instead of having to click their target and then click their heal. So some people like mouse over macros, some people like clicking on people's name frames and having that cast a heal on them. So like Shift clicking on somebody's name frame might cast one heal on them, and then regular clicking might cast a different heal, and right clicking might put your defensive on them, that kind of stuff. There are a bunch of different ways to do this, but basically make sure that the following criteria are satisfied. You can heal somebody without deselecting your current target, and you can do it in one button press per heal.
Yeah, I think healing is actually like one of the weirdest things that differentiates PvE and PvP though, because like healers in PvP end up using like Arena 1, 2, 3 so they can continue to move with their mouse the whole entire time.
Yes,
and they don't have to like mouse over ever, so they just only use Arena 1, 2, 3. So that's like way different though.
Yeah, they'll have 3 keybinds for each heal, one that targets each of those 3 different spots, and that way they can keep moving. You could maybe do that with party 1 through 5, maybe.
Not worth.
Yeah, like it's tough to imagine getting utility out of that. But if you have that set up and that works for you, I'd love to see it in action. But yeah, for the most part, I don't think. Or yeah, raid 1 through raid 20.
Wait a second, hold on.
Yeah, I mean, okay, there was probably a time for Resto Druid when Rejuvenation was super duper OP and was like the only button you press in raid that you could probably just get away with like a grid, like a 4x5 grid, if you had one of those next to your keyboard that just put a Rejuvenation on whichever raid frame you hit, like corresponding that way. That would probably not be that bad. You could probably do okay in raid with that setup at different times in WoW's history. Okay, so that I guess does it for our UI section here. I think that again, just finding somebody's UI that looks good, asking people about their UIs, trolling the Wago site and looking through there to find weakors that look good for you, and then just having like a consistent plan for your UI, like not being lazy with it and doing some work ahead of time to save you doing a bunch of work every single time you play the game, is a good setup for success with your UI.
Wait, what is this bad UI picture that just got linked in chat? What is that?
Okay.
Whose UI is this?
All right, let's take a quick detour through this UI here.
Yeah, sorry to bring us back to UI. Who the fuck's UI is this though?
I don't know. I don't know exactly what's going on in this UI. I guess one problem with this UI is that there's maybe a little bit too much information being presented near the middle of the screen. So that, and this is actually like weakor creep is kind of a real problem that happens to people. Like there are probably multiple weakors on this person's screen. Like it looks like they have both DBM and bigwigs showing the same information in 2 different spots near the middle of their screen. So that's something that is potentially problematic, right? Like you need to be careful to not. Anytime you have the same information displayed twice near the middle of your screen, that's usually a bad thing, usually worth avoiding. But yeah, there's definitely a lot going on here. It would be pretty hard to see your feet with this kind of setup, and that's something to avoid. But it's very easy. It's very easy to have this happen just by like if you just import weakors and just keep throwing them near the middle of your screen. This kind of thing happens pretty quickly, especially if you're
You want to explain to us the SCO UI trail?
Oh no, I mean it's about like this honestly. There's lots of overlapping nameplate buffs and debuffs, and I think several nameplates you can barely see what the cast is beneath. There's a giant number in the middle of the screen. No idea what that's for. Could be something important though.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, like Dragno said, just the general clutter. It's pretty bad.
Okay, yeah, we'll take a look at more UIs at the end of the show. We can like talk about people's UI in chat and stuff.
We could do that after the QA, I think.
Yeah, after the QA, we'll get to those. But for now, let's move on to the second main topic-ish of today, which is more 8.2 stuff. So let's start with Benthic gear. Tettles, what's going on with Benthic gear? What is it, and how does it work?
Benthic gear is bananas right now. So basically, you end up farming these mana pearls, and you're able to buy these 385 pieces of loot that you're actually able to upgrade with mana pearls. So there's a catch though. So they have normalized like secondary stat values. Like in Crucible Storms, we saw some abilities and items with diminished returns on their stat budget because they had secondary stat ability or secondary effect abilities. But there's some of these Benthic gear pieces that do not have diminished. There's actually all of them. None of them have diminishing returns on their secondary stat value, and they also have like an additional effect. Some of the effects increase your DPS. Some of the effects increase your DPS by a lot. And then in addition to that, they can also socket. So There's been a lot of stuff. I know that the notable pieces for leatherwares are the boots. The boots that do crit damage are insane, like to the point where you wear 415 boots with a socket over 445 boots with a socket. Like it's yeah, those are pretty good. So benthic gear has definitely been interesting. So initially it was kind of like supposed to be like a catch-up mechanic, like the mana pearls were just supposed to be catch-up mechanics for like alts and stuff like that, but it's definitely devolved into something else, especially for early gearing for before mythic progression.
Yeah, some of these are BIS items over mythic pieces, though. Yeah, if they roll sockets, a lot of these items will be better than mythic when you upgrade them with the mana pearls. One kind of spooky thing that's going on here as well is that you can buy these with mana pearls, but they're bind to account, so there's actually a pretty big power level bonus to your main character by funneling these tokens from your alt mana pearls to your main character, and then your main character's mana pearls are used for upgrading them up to 430 or whatever once you're allowed to do that. So that's definitely kind of an annoying part of this, is that you get a power level boost to your main character just by farming stuff on your alts, and getting one of these things with a socket with the right equipability is going to be pretty big. So yeah, that's a downside to it, but I don't know. I kind of like that there's this powerful farmable gear that you know makes mana pearls relevant, and mana pearls will continue to be relevant, presumably until you have a full set of socketed benthic gear. And even after you have socketed benthic gear, you can try and roll socketed leech benthic gear in all your slots. So, you know, I'm not super against that, but I do worry about some of it. Yeah. What do you guys think about this this kind of pattern for gear?
For me, it's not a huge deal. I'm not gonna raid seriously this tier, so I haven't like worried too much about it. I think just getting a Titanforge would be good enough for tanking purposes anyway, even without the aspect of mythic raiding. I don't know. What do you think, Tettles?
I mean, so I think buying the gear from the vendor is pretty cool. I think the fact that it has sockets plus no diminishing value on the secondary effects with the secondary stats is like pretty concerning. Like it's cool. Like I think it's actually cool, and it's like a really cool concept that it's like that. But I think the fact that it can also socket and be better than some of the mythic pieces is a bit much. I think it's fine for these 2 weeks, because like you have 2 weeks of where you're not really doing too terribly much, and then you're just kind of hanging out, farming mana pearls, trying to get your best benthic pieces. But just the fact that it can be better than even like just base mythic level pieces is just
it's only better
stupid.
though if you do this like lottery thing of like, okay, you buy 100 boots and then you're trying to roll one with the right effect and the socket.
Yeah, because there's 5 fucking sets of boots or whatever, so you're literally trying to get one pair of boots with a socket on it. So it's like, yeah, you're lottering it out. So it's like, it's really unfortunate. I actually like farmable gear that you can buy through a vendor, but I don't like it like this.
Yeah, I'm positive on it overall, but I think that just the only problem with it is that there's stuff that is better than mythic gear. If they just make it so that it's not better than mythic gear, no matter what the benthic stuff is, like even if it's socketed or whatever, just make it so that it's a little bit worse than the mythic gear, and make it so that I at least can feel like once I have dropped my mythic pieces in each slot, I don't have to keep farming benthic gear. That'll be good. Okay. We have some news about changes to some dungeons. Now, some of this seems a little bug-shaped. Maggots, for instance, in Waycrest Manor are once again triggering on death affixes. So this was a change that was made back in 8.1.5, was that there were a bunch of mobs that were removed from the table of mobs that trigger on death affixes. So we're talking about Sanguine, Bursting, Bullstring, those sorts of things. Maggots in Waycrest were among them, and those were some of the worst for some of those affixes. And now we have evidence that those are once again triggering Bursting this week. Trell, were you the discoverer of this, of the three of us on the show?
I wasn't on that one, but I'm not very happy about it, because that makes Waycrest really pain in the ass again to go through on pretty much any on-death app.
Yeah, so it's unclear whether this is a bug or what, but it's definitely a step in... Okay. I described it as a step in the right direction when they made this change the other direction. So yeah, this is a step in the wrong direction, I think, if it was intentional.
Bad change.
Yeah, bad change for sure. Hopefully they end up fixing that one back, but definitely watch out if you go into these dungeons. You know, don't take for granted that stuff isn't going to burst anymore. Dude, I could just imagine like being like, okay, like if you're like the Mythic Plus expert and you're just running with like your 4 friends and you're like, no, they changed it. Maggots don't burst anymore, and you just pull 10 maggots and they all burst again and you just get yelled at by your group.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that would happen to me. Anytime I like boldly make or loudly make a claim about how something works in this game is that they've changed it back. Okay, this change you did discover though, Trell. Volcall in a Taldazar. What has happened here to this boss?
So what was explained to me, and I think it was Squishy from Wowhead that I was talking to. He was saying Volcall was bugged to double count the bonuses from Tyrannical and the key scaling into his ability that damages himself over time. I can't remember the name of it right now.
It's like Rotting Decay or something?
Yeah, something like that. So they've fixed the bug. So instead of doing about 70% of his total health to himself, now he only does about 30%, I think it was. So the fight is essentially like a minute to a minute and a half longer than it was a couple weeks ago.
Yes, it used to be the way that Volcall worked, is that no matter what key level it was on, you would just do one circle around and then he'd die at the end. Always, because he always dealt the same, like he dealt an amount of damage to himself that was always almost all of his health over that time.
And it was very substantial. It was like 70% of his health, yeah.
Right.
And then I think the reason that even happened, it was an accident because they fixed the scaling issue on the first boss in Underrot. Elderly Access, Blood Bowl was also double counting those bonuses, and that's why it was doing 1 million damage. So they fixed that, and I think they accidentally fixed Volcall, so now it's a longer fight. But we'll see if they're aware of it or if they want to change it back. I don't know.
Yeah, so you were having some, like, this thing was really, really hard on Tyrannical 21 or something, right?
It was, yeah. It was like a 2022 Tyrannical, I think we did. It was pretty substantially hard.
Yeah,
Very
so
long
now,
fight.
if this change stays in, it looks like Bloodlust is going to start being used on Volcall for sure on Tyrannical weeks. I think that's going to be one of the most substantial lusts you can get in that place. Harder even than the buffed Alunza fight is looking like as well. So we'll have to see how that affects routes and pathing. But
yeah, dude, they made this dungeon from one of the easier dungeons definitely to one of the more challenging dungeons with the
especially
Alunza buffs and.
Volcall was already hard on Tyrannical Grievous, actually. Like, that Tyrannical Grievous week, Volcall was actually already hard. If that fight is lasting an extra minute and a half on Grievous weeks, I don't want to be there. I don't want to be there. I'll be somewhere else.
Yeah, they're going to be one of the hardest fights on Grievous for sure. No.
Yeah, catch me in a different dungeon, the Grievous Tyrannical week.
The other changes they did in Natal, since they made that boss one of the hardest ones now, I think since they also nerfed the Colossus, we might see a route where you go to Volcall first and left. With shrouding there, so you don't kill anything before you just lust right away, and then you head down the middle of the bridge to Priestess, and then you come back around and kill the actual Colossus packs like nobody's done in the whole expansion yet. But it could be part of the meta, just guessing.
Interesting. Yeah, I was still thinking you'd want to do your first lust like on Trash at the start, and then just have your like 11-minute lust be on Volcall, and then just get to Alunza, or get to the last boss by 25 minutes and have lust for her as well. But you might be onto something as well. I guess it depends. Like, where's your second lust going to be if you just rush to Volcall and lust there at 1 minute?
That's a good point. I guess Razan would be like maybe 8 minutes in or something. So I'm not quite.
Well, you could do Razan even later. You could do Volcall, run across the side to Alunza, and then like jump down to Razan before Yasma or something, or like before doing all the rest of the trash. But yeah, I think the main thing is like, okay, you clearly want to lust Volcall now, and you clearly want to lust Yasma. So that you get one other lust to either put before or after the Volcall lust. Yeah.
So where do you put it? Do you put it on the Priestess trash?
I still think trash. Yeah, I think trash somewhere in the left side of the dungeon, and pulling multiple of those groups together is going to be a good way to do it. I think
making a beeline towards the Priestess Alunza trash pull, like up the left side, seems like that's a little bit more reasonable, unless you're going to go straight to Volcall off the opener.
I do think one good lust pattern for Tyrannical might just be like Razan, Volcall, Yasma, just lust 3 bosses. Lust works a little bit better on bosses than trash pulls, just kind of in terms of how much time it shaves off of a dungeon.
That dungeon's going to be so fucking hard to chest now. I'm just trying to think about it, because Razan takes just so long, like his health, and Volcall like is going to add an extra minute to him, so you're going to be...
Alunza is hard again. Like you can't fight Alunza with trash. I agree. I think this dungeon has gone from being one of the best to being one of the really tight timers, because it's on only a 30-minute timer. That's
well, the reason that it was like okay before is because it was so open that you could actually just kind of make like super optimal routes and super optimal pathing choices, like how people were doing fucking reaping with Razan and everything else was like a really optimized strategy, right?
Yeah, you could reap onto so many bosses.
Yeah, exactly. You just had super optimal pull pathing was why the dungeon was even like close to chestable on some of the higher levels. just because of how open it ends up being. But now it's just going to be so tight, like even with the optimal polling.
I don't mind Atoll Desert getting harder though. I think that's fine, and I think if they land on the dungeon, not like the Atoll Desert doesn't have to be one of the easiest dungeons or anything. It's fine if it's one of the harder ones. It's been easy for so long, so I'm looking forward to these hard boss fights now. Although I am definitely spooked by the prospect of Volcall on Grievous with its current tuning.
Yeah.
So miss me with that one, but everything else I'm excited for. Okay, there's some changes to Vicchoe, the last boss of Siege of Borealis, to the tentacles. What's going on here?
So last week I went in there and on like a 20 siege, and we got to the last boss with the spotter. We just finally made it through the third boss, keeping him alive and dodging all his crap he throws at you for so. And then you go to drop the spotter circles on the tentacles on the last boss, and it doesn't. And we're like, what, really? Now they nerf it after like a year in Siege of Borealis of people doing.
So you finally can't kill it with the spotter, is what you're saying?
Correct. Yeah. So no need to haul the spotter through the last two bosses.
That's probably a good change. It probably wasn't good gameplay that you could one-shot the tentacles with like a bolstered spotter or a raging spotter or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, definitely the end of an era. That was a fun part of Siege of Borealis strategy. That does mean our healers are going to be able to drink again without having to die after the third boss, so that's nice.
That's true.
And with Reaping going away, it won't be too bad to get to 100% trash. I guess you got to 100% trash before the last boss anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the tentacle change in general is really good, though. Just way less tentacles. It speeds up that fight so much. That fight was like...
Well, okay, so there were 5 tentacles on every platform still when I did it last week. So did they change it again?
They changed it to be only 1 tentacle.
1 tentacle per platform?
Yeah, that's what it is right now.
What?
I'm unsure if that's a bug or if that's intended, though, but there was 1 tentacle.
No, man. That cannot be intentional. There's no way. There's actually no way.
That would be such a good change. I think they actually did it though.
Dude, that's like a fucking 6-minute fight if you have to do it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's there's already 3 platforms. That's cool. That's bizarre. That's really cool. Oh, there were definitely some weird like nuances to how that fight worked, where like you would not get in combat with the gripping to not start the timer on the second demolisher on those later 2 platforms, and people in pugs didn't know that. So with that going away, like if that goes away with only having the 1 destructor per platform, that would be cool. But yeah, that saves a lot of time in that dungeon, which is good because that dungeon is a hard one.
Yeah, I mean that probably cuts like what, probably like two minutes off your timer.
Yeah, something like that. And even again, that's 2 minutes against probably like a good spotter. I guess a spot. It makes it like you had a spotter.
Yeah,
even
that's
if you
actually
don't.
just like a really good change for the dungeon as a whole, because now you also don't have to deal with the spotter with Hadal and everything else too. That's like overall a really good change for the health of the dungeon, how they ended up dealing with that. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. Like dodging the circles and the wave and the swirlies and stuff at the same time, but I know a lot of people didn't. There was a lot going on, and I usually had Cloak of Shadows if I got in trouble, which anytime I'm like, oh, I enjoyed that mechanic, I kind of have to check in my head how much of it was like the fact that I could cloak if it actually got me with a bad overlap. So all right, we also have some changes to Motherlode. Azarok is spawning 2 adds per cast now on each of the waves.
They need to cut that boss's health by like 20% if they're going to do something like that. I mean, I'm like fine with it because that boss is like 4 minutes patchwork fight, boring as hell. But like if they honestly made it spawn 2 adds per wave and then cut his health by 20%, that seems like super reasonable to me.
Yeah, I think they should add a feature to it where killing an ad reduces the boss's health by 10% or whatever.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I think that the fight definitely, one of the problems with the fight is you kind of like there's this hectic like nonsense going on at the start where you pull these 4 ads and you're like kiting and you're killing the ads and like there's a lot going on and you could die, and then the ads are dead and you're just hitting on this boss that is complete patchwork for the next 2 minutes and nothing's going on, and the boss just has like 7 zillion health and you're trying to get through that and it takes a long time. So removing that part of the fight, like making it so that there's not this long patchwork component, I think would be good for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it a little bit more like if you do something like that, it incentivizes you to kill the ads like almost instantly off the opener as opposed to trying to like just cleave off the boss and then kill the ads passively too. So that would actually be a really good change if they did that.
Okay, we also
one last thing on Azarok. I think they normalized his spawn rate of his ads too. So before he would spawn 1 ad sometimes, and then maybe like wait 2.5 minutes, and then would do, which I'm sure was unintentional. So There's probably a bug fix where
Oh,
now
man.
2 ads spawn like at a very set increment throughout.
That's good, because when it used to have that random component, sometimes we'd have this route that involved pulling trash while fighting that boss in the patchwork phase.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, okay, I want to pull some trash, but the boss is going to spawn an ad either in the next 10 seconds or sometime in the next 2 minutes. So like I kind of have to make this guess where like either I wait for the ad to spawn and maybe just nothing happens for 2 minutes, or I pull trash and then an ad might spawn while that's happening, and that might be super hectic. So making that timer consistent is going to be good for that purpose for sure. If you want to go back and grab that, what's the stuff behind the Taskmaster pack behind Azeroth?
Yeah, Taskmaster pack.
Right, which is pretty good count. That was pretty easy to pull into the boss during the patchwork time. So not.
I mean, but you're probably gonna end up having a beguiling mob in that pack more often than not. It seems like, so that pack doesn't like if you end up having like a tides, like you can't even pull that into Azeroth because of how it ends up dealing with the ads, right? Because you can't CC the thing, the AoE.
Well, oh yeah, that okay. I could see how that would be bad. I could see how that would be a problem. I guess you could chain root it though, if you wanted to. Okay, Elderly Axa. Yeah. We also have some reporting coming in from the Underrot that Elderly Axa is now a complete meme. Have either of you seen this in practice now?
Yeah, it's
like 165k or some shit like on a 23 where you can like actually just no kick it and you're fine.
From as a DPS player or as a tank?
It's 100. It's like 165k to a tank, like unmitigated.
To a tank. Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's really easy then. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like DPS are able to survive these blood bolts now. The ad cast does less damage than the boss cast, so that like that first ad cast that goes on a random person or the closest person or whatever is actually survivable if you don't kick now. So yeah, the fight is really easy now. Although it is a lot slower if you are good, because it used to be so fast because of how much damage Spell Reflect would do to it. So.
Oh, that's a good point. I think you're probably going to get an extra ad now because of that.
Yeah, the fight is. I think the fight's going to take an extra minute or something on High Tyrannical. With the Prot Warrior.
Sure I mean, it's a good change. Like,
obviously it's a good change, but also it is a nerf
that's an interesting point.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then the final thing we have to talk about is Purification Protocol. This is an Azerite essence. Let's go to the side of our screen here and watch this little Twitch clip here from
I'm excited for this.
Yeah.
So basically, Purification Protocol, whenever you have rank 2 of it, Mother has a chance to like spawn and just annihilate a mob. Obviously, it can't annihilate boss mobs or lieutenants, so that's something to note. But even still, yeah, just watch what happens.
Okay, so this is our clip, and this is as it stands right now. This is not disabled in Mythic Plus. This happens in any level of Keystone. Although this footage is from a Mythic 0. But you can see the trash gets pulled here. Purification Protocol annihilates one of the dinosaurs in the center trash pack of a Taldazar. So as it stands right now, no matter what type of mob it is, it can just die. It can get completely one-shot by the Purification Protocol. Now, how long this lasts, this gameplay like lasts, is unclear. I'm sure that this is not going to work for long. Like, I'm sure.
I'm gonna quote that whenever it's still working in a couple months.
There's no way that Blizzard Entertainment would leave this kind of gameplay in the game.
Something that one-shots mobs. No way.
RNG MDI, dude. Honestly,
oh my goodness, if this makes it to MDI and you'll just like pull the whole dungeon and everybody will Purification Protocol at the same time, and you'll just hope that everything gets annihilated.
Yeah. So basically, there's some mobs that are like way more important that they like RNG get annihilated. Obviously, like that dinosaur and fucking a Taldazar, that'd be wild if that got annihilated.
Yeah,
Augur would
a lot of percent.
Probably pretty sick too. Like some of the other things I thought of is the Feral Bloodswarmer and Underrot. That would be pretty lit.
Yeah.
Any of the mobs in the first half of Shrine of the Storm I could probably get down with those. The Attendants or the Spiritualists, they could just like get annihilated and that'd be sick too. So those would be pretty good.
Okay. The odds that this makes it through is pretty low, but until this is fixed, this is the BIS emissary or the BIS essence for everybody in Mythic Plus, and you should have it at rank 2 or higher.
As a tank or a healer, though, feels bad.
That is unfortunate, yeah. So you'll maybe we just start 5 DPSing so that we can just try and okay, no, check this out. All right, hang on. I've just had a ray of insight. All right, you start the dungeon with 5 DPS, you pull the whole place, you use your purification protocols, and then your tank and healers zone out and swap to their specs.
Hold up. This is the moon meta. 5 fucking balance druids with trees. Wait a second.
Yeah. No, okay, yeah. 5 balance druids. One of them has Guardian affinity. One of them has Resto affinity. And then the other 3 have Feral affinity, and then you just do the job. You just pretend to be whatever you have the affinity of.
Wait, why would the balance druids need Feral affinity?
Yeah,
because that's the DPS one.
Hold on, wait, it's 4. It's wait a second. Hold on.
Tettles, you don't understand. That's the DPS one. So you take that one to indicate that you're going to be the DPS, and then the ones with the Resto affinity and the Guardian affinity are the tank and the healer.
I need to go rewrite my WoW Ed guide. Holy
yeah,
shit,
actually, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry to step on your toes as balance druid expert here.
Blow my mind, dude.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
Okay. So that's the purification protocol. Again, not something that we expect to last for too long, but have your fun while it's live. And definitely, clearly this should not exist in Mythic Plus, and if Blizzard is looking for is this fun gameplay that we should try to have in our Mythic Plus? No. Fix this. Don't have stuff get annihilated in M+. Put
that thing back where it came from, or so help me.
Mm-hmm. All right, but that's the end of our main topics this week. Let's move on to questions and answers, Q&A. Did either of you pick up any good questions from chat today?
I got one earlier. It's from Twitch Prime, the McDanny. Oh, I get a copy Twitch Prime, but that's a good
Twitch Prime
selling point. Oops. So he said, comparing Fury Warriors to Demon Hunters, Windwalker Monks, and Outlaw Rogues, what would you guys do to increase the viability of Fury Warriors and higher myth? What do you guys think?
So we're looking at what? Fury, Outlaw, Havoc, and Windwalker, and the other 3 were the ones that aren't Fury Warrior are the specs that we saw a lot of in Season 2?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
so Fury not having uncapped AoE was really fucking bad. Their Whirlwind only hitting a certain amount of targets and everything was not super sick. But
it's hard capped at 5, right?
Yeah,
yes.
It's hard capped at 5.
So Fury had the problem where they didn't do extra AoE damage beyond the 6th target. Yeah. That was a huge problem in Reaping. So partially the problem is going to be fixed just by Reaping going away, because there aren't going to be too many cases where you're going to want to AoE more than, when Reaping was active, you would want to AoE more than 5 targets all the time. And the fact that your class didn't do that was a huge liability, but now it's not so bad. So on the damage side, that's going to be good for them. Other good things for Fury are just that their damage is looking phenomenal with essences and stuff. That looks really good for them. So that's good too.
But they still don't really have any good CC.
That's the problem. Yeah, utility. Fury doesn't bring big utility in the way that Windwalker, Havoc, and Rogue do. So they probably need to do not just comparable damage, but dramatically more damage than those other specs in order to be brought to keys. I think.
That's true. Utility is huge in this expansion. Sorry, go ahead.
I think they're a Demon Hunter equivalent too, because they have Bloodthirst Heal, which is fucking nutty. But then you have Demon Hunter with Soul Rending, and that's also infinite healing. So it's really kind of a toss up on that. Yeah,
they can taunt, but they can't actually survive like Demon Hunters, Arms Warriors can do when they taunt with parry or Nether Walk. So that's their taunt is useful. It's a useful DPS taunt, but it's not as strong as Demon Hunters for sure. Demon Hunters, especially with Blade Dance and Nether Walk, really strong at tanking some boss mechanics for a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Rallying Cry is useful. There are some spots, there are some mechanics where that's going to be very helpful, like having a rally in your group. For the first boss of Temple of Sethraliss, for example, is a useful thing to have, but you have the other one. You'll have a Prot Warrior often to bring that too, so unless Prot Warriors stop being something that you play a lot, you don't need the Fury for that too. But yeah, I think that they're kind of in this place right now where their utility is clearly a cut below those other melee specs, so their damage needs to be better for them to start being brought to M+, or they need to have some kind of utility added to their kit.
I mean, I think they're just in a similar spot as Death Knight, where they have to be either just so overwhelmingly good damage-wise that they get brought to everything, or they have to there probably has to be some change to their kit. If DPS DK actually had Gorfiend's Grasp, then they would get brought to everything. No question asked.
Yeah, so something like Gorfiend's Grasp, something of that power level. So that kind of utility thing for Fury.
Like Ring of Peace, like Gorfine's Grasp, some like displacement or knockback, or like you could even give them like a Sap or a Blind style CC2, and they'd probably be better off just having it.
Yeah, just give them like, what's the meme for warrior abilities? Just shout, like sapping shout. They just like yell at a mob and it gets sapped for a minute.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah. Those sorts of things would be good for them. But I think you could see them, even with their kit as it stands right now, if they're just doing 5% more damage than everybody, you might start seeing one of them in keys.
Oh yeah, dude, if they're doing 5% more damage than everybody else, they're getting broad.
Yeah. So that's I think the main path in the short term for Fury Warrior and keys is through damage. Okay, other questions we got here?
EBM versus Big Wigs, what's better for Mythic Plus?
Oh, I think Big Wigs is a for sure better one. Little Wigs comes pre-configured with... So Little Wigs is an add-on that comes with Big Wigs that gives you dungeon timers, and just out of the box, it'll track almost everything you need in Mythic Plus, but DBM by default doesn't track a bunch of Mythic Plus stuff. So I would recommend Big Wigs and Little Wigs for Mythic Plus over DBM.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page there.
Broski asks, do you guys use the little reticle weak aura to mark your feet on Jaina? They started using it all the time now. Do you have any thoughts on that? So do you guys use anything to track your feet, your character?
I don't do that, but that's also kind of reaching back to our UI section on this podcast, because what you want to do optimally is keep the middle of your screen clear, and that means around your feet as well, so you can see really, really well what's going on around you at all. So that's why I don't personally use one, but I could see someone using a reticle for sure.
Yeah, one feature that the game has that I use in Raid, there's this setting in your one of your settings windows called self highlight, and you can have it highlight yourself with a circle around your feet and or like an outline around your character. And I find that to be really useful to have in a raid group to identify where my character is, because sometimes you can kind of get lost in the mix of like all the bodies in melee or whatever, or in all the stuff going on. So having that turned on, I think is hugely useful especially for fights like Jaina where there's the visibility stuff going on. But I just have that all the time in raids now too.
Yeah, I mean, it's also about like what you're comfortable with in general. I mean, I don't need something like that being like one of the largest classes playing fucking Moonkin and on Ratoran, so I'm like literally enormous and arranged, so right. I never have any issues seeing my character. But if you're comfortable with it, if it makes you more comfortable to play, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't think that reticle is like necessarily like intrusive on your UI like at all.
Yeah, being a goblin, a little goblin like me. We start to, or it's harder to see myself. Okay. Other questions here. I guess one thing we could do is we could look at some folks in chat's UI and maybe talk about some things that we see going on with them.
So while we get those, Billy asked, what are my thoughts on double ranged? Is it coming back to Mythic Plus? No, kicks are too important.
Yeah. The only way I would see double range being good I don't see how you can do that without one of those range being an elemental shaman. That's one of the nice things about
dungeons, it. Yeah, it has to be Ellie. Like half the dungeons like have like mandatory melee kicks that you just have to get just like on an insane level. Like you have dungeons like Underrot, Shrine of the Storm. Those are two just like off the top of my head. They're just like insane amounts of kicks required. Obviously, a Taldazar left side with the Augur Confessor can actually get really obnoxious if you don't end up having enough kicks and everything. I don't see a world where we actually ending up in a double ranged meta with just how these dungeons are designed. Like obviously there's some dungeons that are fine, like Wake Rest is probably okay, but
yeah, okay, you could play two ranged if your healer was a Resto Shaman and you had the kick from them.
That would be sick, I guess. I would actually like a Resto Shaman meta at some point, I think.
Yeah, me too. That'd be cool times. And that would allow you to play a second ranged that doesn't have a range kick. Otherwise, Elemental Shaman are a pseudo melee for the purposes of their for the length of their kick, so that sort of counts. Like if you're talking about double ranged.
Yeah, I'm so fucking tired of Resto Druid meta. Like, oh my god, I want the Resto Shaman to be meta so goddamn bad, because you're gonna have Rock Ellie and you're gonna have an interrupt and you have an AOE stun. And it's like, oh dude, that class is insane, but it's just like so undertuned.
All right, we have the Resto Shaman that tanked for me on every replay the other day, and it was great, man. I wish the Resto Shaman was meta too. That'd be.
Dude, I wish that class was meta. Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Just pop out the Earth
Ellie.
It's like
Earth Ellie, big pog. Okay. let's take a look at some of these UIs. But first, I'm getting trolled by one of my guildies who's showing my Heart of Azeroth level here. This was from before. Okay, it's higher than 51.7 now. It's now 52.5. But yeah, I was out of town for a little bit, so my neck level was a little low. But I will be, okay, mark my words. Mark my words. I will not be the lowest neck level in my raid. I'll be in the middle of the pack by Mythic Week, if not at the top of the pack.
I was gonna say by Tuesday. I was like, wow.
Yeah, not by Tuesday. Cool. Not by Tuesday. I'm gonna go outside maybe. So
no, Travis is taking a tropical expedition into the islands.
Okay, we got some UIs to take a look at here. This one comes from the McDane. So we got a warrior UI here. This one looks like a pretty standard Elv UI setup. Elv UI, one of the nice things about it is it's like it comes just out of the box with a full functioning UI that is pretty configurable. And you'll see a lot of people with UIs that look like this because it's just so easy to set up an Elv UI like this. I personally don't use it, but it's a great thing to be able to use for sure.
Yeah.
One thing that for me that wouldn't work with this UI is that the abilities are a little bit too close to where my feet are. I don't know if you guys are looking at this one, but like they're a little bit too central in my screen. So if I was playing this, I'd be moving my like main Vicchoe bar or whatever that is down by 50 pixels or something. But other than that, this looks like a very very functional UI. I like how everything's near the middle of the screen for like your health frame and your opponent's health frame, your target's health frame.
Mm-hmm. I'm definitely with you on that. I think it's definitely too close. Something I want to pose though is, so as a ranged, I never feel like I have an issue with this. Like I can just like zoom out my screen as far as possible. But whenever I play melee or tank, I feel like I definitely need to zoom in my screen way more. I feel like I can't like see my feet that well because I'm playing so far out. Do you guys end up having that issue at all?
Yeah, I don't play max zoom distance when I'm like I'll zoom in and out based on where like the context of what I'm doing on a melee character.
Wait, you zoom in and out like while you're doing this?
Yeah, I do it too actively.
Yeah.
It's bound to my arrow keys. Like what?
It's my mouse wheel is zooming in and out, and like in confined spaces I'll zoom in so that I'm not like butting my camera up against the ceiling every time I move, and because that can be really annoying.
Or when you catch a tree in your camera, or like a banner on the side of the wall, and your camera's behind it, so it's covering your entire. Sometimes they can help, like if you're constantly moving around in melee. So maybe that's why you've never had a need for it, Tettles, because you're a ranged player. If you're moving around a lot in melee, sometimes it's like I'm sick of the camera going back and forth the entire time. So
I feel like I just like lose my camera. So, like sometimes I lose my character. Like I lose my camera, then I'll lose my character position. I'm just like, what the fuck just happened? I'm just like, maybe I'm just like too zoomed out or something.
Yeah, I think that's something that is different between melee and ranged, is that component of it, like how you can be zoomed.
Just max zoom and chill. That's my go-to for ranged.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take a look at some more of these. So I don't have the name. I haven't saved which name. I've just opened up a bunch of these tabs so we can take a quick look at some of these different UIs. So here we've got a rogue UI, very wide screen, a very this person has an ultra wide monitor or whatever. But yeah, you can see that they've got just their stuff near the middle of their screen. Pretty standard looking UI going on here. Not much to say about this one. But yeah, I like it. I like this is the Afinar Vicchoe package in the middle. Their own health bars. A lot of the same add-ons I use actually here. So cool setup. Here we've got a Protection Warrior UI. Okay, this one's one where you can actually see, if you look at the left-hand side of the screen on this UI, you can see there's a lot of different tracking for kicks and like their groups Chaos Nova, Typhoon, Ursul's Vortex, Darkness, Ironbark. Their groups like personal defensives in Riposte, Blur, and Cloak. And then their group's offensive cooldowns, Adrenaline Rush, Meta, Incarn, are all tracked near the party frames here, as well as those kick timers. So looks like there's a total of about 15 abilities across their 5-person group that they're tracking near their party frames here. What do you guys think of the way that information is displayed here?
Oh, the party frames, I think it's really good.
Yeah, I like this as well. This looks nice.
The only thing I don't like about the UI is that it basically shows every ability twice, I think. Maybe not. Actually.
No, I think these are all unique
No, I'm
instances. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at it again. I thought he had 2 instances of some of the
There-
main sets of abilities.
Yeah, so like the over to the left of the unit frames, they have the personals of the party. To the top, they have like external defensives, so Ironbark and Darkness. To the right, they have the crowd control abilities like Chaos Nova and Typhoon, and then below the unit frames, they have offensive cooldowns. That seems like a good way to organize it. Yeah, and then of course they have the interrupt tracker right there as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's zoomed all the way out on this picture too, and like, dude, I caught myself on Overseer Corgus. I could not get out of the fucking ground effect. I was just like, did not know what I was doing.
Yeah,
I was like wedged into the corner, and I actually couldn't see anything. So like, I felt like I was like, I need to zoom in my camera more. Like, I knew it like instantly as soon as I was like wedged into that corner and couldn't see like where I was moving. I was like, this is sick. I love this.
yeah. Okay.
Poor Tettles losing his character mid-fight, man.
Bad tank, dude. Kalov is binged.
Okay. Let's look at. Let's see. Is this a healer UI? I think this is a healer UI.
Shadow Priest or is it the healer?
Yeah, this is okay. Here's one that looks like a healer UI. Oops, that zoomed in. Okay, that zoomed out. Nice. This looks like a classic healer UI though, right? You can see there's all the
Yeah, it does.
like okay, if you look at the information that's being displayed in the middle of the screen here, we see healer cooldowns and rallies in the bottom left. So those sorts of effects. And then we have raid frames are right near the middle. Instead of this like weak ore package that a lot of DPS players have, you'll see a lot of healer UIs will instead just have the raid frames in that central spot, and then like their mana and their health over on the left. So it looks like this is they're in shadow right now, but this is a person who normally heals. So you can actually see in their UI that this is somebody who heals, and this is a good way to have your UI set up if you're a healer, is to have access to your health, like your raid frames right near the middle of your screen.
It's really not cluttered either. It's great. This is a good UI.
Yeah, this is very, very, very simplistic. And you can see like, okay, the 4 things they're tracking above their themselves are dispersion, rocket jump, healthstone, and prepot. Great set of stuff to track. Love it. Okay.
I think that's a life grip. I don't.
Oh, is that life grip? No, okay, that's over on the right on this one, but just above their health frame.
On the left side. Oh, never mind.
Yeah. And then they're also tracking Massive Spell, Psychic Stream, and Life Grip cooldowns. Okay.
Oh, speaking of the paralyze and imprison thing we said earlier, if you don't have life grip and death grip on the same keybind on Death Knight and Priest, I mean,
Who the fuck plays Death Knight
Well,
and Priest?
okay, no, I play Life Grip and Death Grip on different keybinds. Yeah, they're very different abilities. Death Grip goes where like my charge goes, that kind of stuff.
oh, I have Death's Advance or Wraithwalk where charge goes.
Okay, that goes where my sprint goes. All right, this UI is a complete abomination. Just what, like anime characters all around it? No, man.
Go ahead and skip that one.
Yeah, we're not gonna look at that one. Get those IIS out of chat.
Wait a second.
Okay, let's take a look at this one.
Fucking YouTube. That's so good.
This one is Evade's UI. Looks like Evade's Rat Paladin UI, with his bags open. Nice. Okay, so what are we looking at here? We have tracking for near the middle or near the like party frames next to everybody's name are their offensive and defensive cooldowns. This is something like Naga's front end for the Zen Tracker weak aura package. So Zen Tracker is a powerful back end weak aura that there are then a bunch of weak auras that can display the cooldowns, different like stuff in your group. So ZT Zen Tracker, that's something you can look up on the weak aura site. And then also next to there is the interrupt tracker. Cool setup though. Cool setup.
Do you think there's something special about Evade's UI, or do you think he's actually just 300 IQ?
Something special I noticed that he has 5 rows of water in one, and he probably has to keep it all stocked up the entire time, like one stack. Once one stack goes away, he probably buys a whole other stack just to put that.
Okay, we're looking at this Frostweave bag. Yeah, Evade just has an entire Frostweave bag dedicated to water. That is a man who's going to stay hydrated. Love it.
Thirsty ass.
Yeah. One thing you'll also notice, it's kind of difficult to see with this UI, but if we zoom in at the damage meters, you can see here that Evade actually lost in damage to Move C, the hunter.
Oh, you're canceled, Evade.
Oh, there he goes. That's a second place.
Cleverly hidden. That's why he has the bags open.
A second place finish here. A silver medal for Evade's damage. But yeah, outside of that, a great UI, from Evade on his rep pally. All right, I think we should probably avoid just deteriorating into us looking at UIs for the entire day. Although actually we could do that sometime. You know what? At some point in the future, we can do just a us reviewing UIs stream. Oh, dude,
pretty good,
yeah. If we ever start a Patreon, we can make one of the perks be that we'll just do like a review of UI. Well, we'd make so much money. We could be rich.
Shit! Wait a second. Hold on.
No. This is
like my bathwater. Wait a second.
Oh yeah. Okay. Oh,
what's better, that idea or Tettles bathwater?
Dude, we could do both.
The profit margin of the bathwater is way better.
If we had a tier on our Patreon which by the way we don't have one yet, but we might make one at some point. If we had a tier though where you got both a UI review and a shipment of bathwater from each of us, we would just have we'd have everybody. There'd be something for everybody.
$50.
Yeah. I think that would be. I think that's a good idea.
We'd have to talk about that one off stream. I don't know about that.
Trell, don't worry. I'll come collect your bathwater. It's okay. You won't even notice me.
Dude, okay. You wouldn't sell your bathwater for a $50 Patreon. Hold on.
$50? Okay, maybe.
Okay, yeah, dude. Everybody's got a price. Let's be real here.
Yeah. There's nothing to. It's fine. I would do the same. Well, so basically, what we're saying is our bathwater is for sale, and we're figuring out the price. And if anybody in chat is looking for it, that is available. But I think that about does it for our show this week. We've meandered a little bit, looked at some UIs. That was cool. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us though. Remember you catch us. So we're live every Saturday here on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Dratnos. My friends are Tettles and Trell, who each also stream. Tettles, what is your stream?
TTV Tettles, twitch.tv/Tettles.
Okay, Tettles, yeah. TTV Tettles being one of your character names. I hear YT Tettles for YouTube Tettles is on the come up as well.
YT Tettles got leveled, so we're really making the most out of the name.
And then Trell, you are also a streamer at Trellski, Trell, TRELLSKY.
Yep, that's me, Trellski.
Definitely would advise sending follows and subscriptions and stuff their way. So then we're live on Saturdays on Twitch. On Sundays, you can check all of our YouTube channels to see this recorded in video form on our YouTubes. And then on Monday, it comes out on audio feeds. So iTunes, Spotify, anywhere you get podcasts through audio, theoretically, we should be there. So if there's anywhere that any app that you use to listen to podcasts and you can't find us, let us know and we'll do whatever process we have to do to submit ourselves to that app. So that's been our show. We've been the Titanforge podcast. We'll be back in next week to talk about more stuff, but bye.